I recognize now that I hold two things. I hold my grief, and I also hold this joy. I'll say it now, I am fighting for my joy. So a lot of people have heard the story. I was a freshman at Northwestern, and I was walking down Sheridan Road, and his dad pulled up to me and asked me for directions. And he said, hey, we're here, we're visiting the campus. My son is looking for whatever dorm. And I looked in, and I was like, oh my gosh, you don't have to, I'll just show you. It'll be easier for me to show you than, tell you. And so I remember him getting out of the car, and he was kind of shy and kind of quiet, and I'm kind of loquacious, if you will. And I remember saying, like, what's your name? And he said, my name is Uche. And I was like, oh, it would be cooler if it was like Uche. And like, I look back, who says that? Like, who tells somebody that their name would be cooler if it was another way? But he like laughed, and the rest was history. Like, I just remember him being so polite and charming and sweet. And my freshman year went by, and then we were at a party for welcoming the incoming freshmen, and I saw him at the party. And I feel like he tried to act like he didn't remember me. And I'm like, I know you remember me. And we talked about it all the time. I'm like, you remembered me. So he tried to kind of play it cool. And then eventually the girls were just like, you're looking at that freshman. Like, just, and I'm like, but he's younger than me. And they're like, you guys both need to stop it. And so then we just started hanging out. I can't think of a day that went by between 1997 and 2025. I can't think of it more than a couple of days that went by in that chunk of time where we didn't at least check in. We were in the middle of applying for high schools, and the first time I noticed anything, we were at a school, and he raised his hand. Uche was very smart, and he was, a business consultant, and very heady. And so he would ask complicated questions, and I used to say, you use such big words. And so when he asked a question and he stuttered a little bit, no one else in the audience would have noticed it, but I remember kind of looking over and being like, that was weird. And so the next school we went to a few nights later, it happened again. And I'm like, hey, did you notice that? Like, what's going on? And he was like, I know, right? And there were a couple of other moments where when I was running the marathon, I remember I had this pair of sneakers. He opened up the box of shoes and he goes, oh, these are the Pegasus. And I went, whoa, what was that? And he was like, right? And so days went by, and one morning I said, hey, I feel like I should ask, I said, Natalie, our doctor on our show, I should ask Dr. Natalie, maybe what's going on. And so I called her that day at work after the show, and she called back pretty quickly and said, hey, you should have him go and get an MRI, just have him get checked out. And so I had to work that next day, and he went to the emergency room. And I honestly didn't think anything else of it. And so I went to bed, and then I remember popping up around 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, oh, he's not here. And I usually leave the house around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I was like, so then I called him, and he answered immediately, and I'm like, hey, where are you? And he's like, I'm outside, I'm on the stoop. And I'm like, what? He called our boy twin, Chibuzor, which is like a pet name in Nigeria for boy twin. He's like, is Chibuzor still in the bed with you? And I'm like, oh my God, he is in the bed. I didn't even notice my youngest was in the bed. I said, how'd you know he was in the bed? And he goes, well, I came in, but I didn't want to wake you up. And I'm like, oh my God, come in, what? So he comes in and he gives me this paperwork, and he's like, hold on. So he picks up my little guy and carries him up 2 flights of stairs and then comes back, and he hands me the paperwork, and he's like, I think I have cancer. And I was like, what? It's 1 in the morning. I'm like, what? He's like, I'm pretty sure. He's like, because the nurse that gave me the paper, her hand was shaking, and she looked like she was trying not to cry. But I don't think it's good. And I'm like, oh, it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be fine. We'll figure it out. I'm sure it's something else. And so he's like, okay. So I said, okay, so I'm gonna do the show, and then tomorrow I'll meet you at the hospital, and we'll get another MRI, and we'll see. So I went in the next morning, and that was where I learned the power of compartmentalizing and how our bodies will compartmentalize in ways that you don't even know are possible. And so I went to work that day as if, something we're just kind of work with, but I didn't worry about it. I did the show, I did something else extra for the show after, and then I looked at the clock, I'm like, okay, let me head on over. And so I went back to the hospital, and we just waited in the lobby. And while we were in the lobby or in the waiting area, we were typing application essays just to try to get them done. And within minutes, the doctor came back and he pulled us behind a curtain. And that was when I was like, uh-oh. And the doctor was very matter of fact. And he was like, I'm really sorry to tell you this, but you have glioblastoma. And I'm like, what's that? And then Uche just like, put his hands on his knees and he was like, that's the worst one you can have. And I'm like, well, no, wait, what is glioblastoma? Like, what is it? And he goes, you know what, I can't really say much more. I can get you hooked up with a really great neurologist, but and that was it. And then I started kind of calling around to some physicians who were friends. And when you call some of your best friends in life who are physicians and they start crying immediately, you're like, oh, this isn't good. But even then, you just don't know what you don't know. And I hate asking for things, but for the first time in my life, I was like, maybe I'm in this job and in this chair for a reason. Like, I know how to make phone calls, I know how to ask questions. And so I just got to work. My colleagues got to work, all the doctors I know got to work, and we just scoured the country for the latest and greatest and clinical trials, and we just did everything we could. And I worked every day, and he's so private. I think he didn't want people to know because he wanted people to beat it, and then we would talk about it. And so that's how we approached it. When we found out that he had glioblastoma, some of my best friends were like, you cannot run this marathon. Because I was running every day, I was training. It's a lot to train for a marathon, and I really wanted to do it the right way so I didn't hurt myself. And they were like, you cannot take care of him and be a caretaker, take care of 3 children, have a network news job, and train for a marathon. And in some ways, I think it was the therapy I didn't know I needed. It was the one moment when I would run, I would be by myself, or I would run at the time with one of our floor directors. The people I ran with didn't even know. I think sometimes they could tell I was holding things, so you'd just be quiet and you would just run. And he had his first brain surgery right before the marathon. So much so that I don't know if they thought he could go. But he was like, oh, no, I'm going. And so you'll see pictures of us hugging. He has a blue cap on, and the hat is kind of crooked. And it's because he was hiding, he had brain surgery there, and he had a lot of hair. And I loved our neurosurgeon. And he was like, Uche, this is too cool. I'm not taking his hair, so I'm just gonna take what I need to take so that he can keep his hair. You wouldn't have even known. And I remember our embrace, and I look back at pictures of how proud he was of me. I mean, it was just such a moment for us. It was like the world stood still. He threw a party for me that night, and unbeknownst to me at the time, he had a seizure that night. And I didn't know. And he tipped out, and I tried to end the party a little early because I was like, what's going on? And at the time, we didn't even know they were seizures. We just thought they were like glitchy, like, whatever. But that was kind of the beginning of like, uh-oh, this is gonna be a ride. He was super active, so he would still play soccer. Fitness and faith were his therapy. And so he just doubled down on both. We'd play, our favorite praise and worship music around the house, and we were just in fight mode. And in that time, that's when my colleagues stepped in. Who do we need to call? Can we just come over? Can we help you with your kids? And meal trains, and just all of the things. Everybody on that team met me at like my place of need. And when I got to the place where I was melting, like I started to acknowledge, like, I don't know if I can do this much longer. It was December of last year, and I was in my dressing room, and Dylan came in, and she closed the door, and she was like, what are you doing? She's like, what are you doing? Like, you're being strong for who? Like, go home. Like, you've done this now. Like, go be with him. Go be with him. And I was like, I think it's time. Yeah, okay. And I'd more than worked. So as soon as I said, hey guys, like, I think I need to step off the treadmill for a little bit, they were like, oh my God, like, absolutely. And I remember telling him, I'm gonna stay home. And he's like, no, what? But I'm like, no, I wanna be here. And I'm so happy that I stepped off the work treadmill so I could be fully present with him and the kids and their homework and their mental health and mine. Like, it was the right time to step off the treadmill. It wasn't until a nurse mentioned hospice that I was like, huh? Like, there's nothing left. What do you mean? Like, do you mean? And even then, you know in theory that someone is going to pass, and what I now know to be true, and I now know that so many people in this country deal with this, you grieve before something even happens. It's like anticipatory grief. And not only that, you start to grieve the life that you had. You almost start to grieve, oh my God, I just wish I could complain about the fact that I'm tired. I wish I could just complain about the fact that like, why are you being so picky and you don't want chicken tenders today? You know, those things now seem like nothing. And he came home. And it was probably some of the hardest weeks, months of my life because he was really sick and the kids were going to school and I'm not a nurse. We didn't have anybody. I was doing it all. Even now, my respect for caretakers, you know, I did it for, you know, a year and a half or so. There are people who do this for years. And so the toll that it takes is, it takes on your body physically and mentally can be excruciating in ways that you don't even know, you know, are happening. There's a whole world of those people who make our lives just a bit easier to handle when we're dealt with the worst news we could ever imagine. Those heroes get us through. And I don't know if we see them enough in this country. And so it is one of my goals to let them know that we see them and to celebrate them because I couldn't have made it without them. When he was in hospice, they allowed me to just be a wife and they allowed my kids to just be the kids. We had some of the best laughs in hospice. Like my little guy playing with the soccer ball and he's laughing. We watch more episodes of Ted Lasso than one should watch. And you know, I'd never have time to watch television, so I got into it like it had just started and people were like, Sheinelle, we all know. And then for him, he loves soccer, so I would put that on, or a Pele documentary or David Beckham documentary. I mean, we always had something on, or we'd have like fun music playing. And we turned his hospice room into like, it felt like a studio apartment. I've called it my beautiful nightmare because it really was. It was a nightmare, but it was beautiful. Like the love of our party of 5, when everyone else would leave and we could just close that door and it was just us and he would sit up and he would be smiling and it just felt safe. And so in that moment, I didn't have the fear, you know? And so it wasn't until the end where I just felt like it was getting harder for him to just be present. I remember towards the end, I didn't know it was the end at the time, but he was so weak. And I remember one day looking at him, and it was right at the tip of my tongue. I wanted so badly to ask him, like, if you die, like, can you just let me know that you're okay? Like, I don't know how it works, but just like, can you just try to find a way to like, let me know, you know? And I looked at him and I just couldn't do it. Like, I didn't want him to think like, not you too, you know? So I never asked. But now, I feel like he's the kind of guy, and he's so competitive, and we'd had to be the last to leave a party, and has to score. He messed up his arm and had to have shoulder surgery right before he got diagnosed because he was like going in for like a goal. He was like a goalie. And I'm like, who cares if at 44 you score the goal in Chelsea? Like, New York, like who cares? You know, but he wanted the goal, you know, so he's that kind of a guy. And so I have no doubt that if there is a way to, when you pass, to let a loved one know that you're okay, he's gonna figure it out. And I have been carried with that reality ever since he passed. I don't know why we had to lose a 45-year-old who was such a light. I mean, I told the funeral home that we may have like 120 people. Like I kind of thought in my mind, and there were thousands. Like it was insane. And now there's so many people who now attend my church who didn't even go to church before, you know? And it's like the power that he had. And it was because of how he fought it. There was something about his faith that was intriguing to people. And through the end, and how he fathered and how he was just so strong. Like there was something about it. So I don't know why things happen the way they do. And I will tell you, there are nights, more nights than not, that I'm just like, how is this happening? I'm tired, and being a single mom is really hard. You've got a 13-year-old on this side of the island, another 13 on this side of the island, a 16-year-old over there. Like, it is very difficult to have a network job and 3 kids and to be in this widow club. It's very hard. Hi, everybody.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
People see me on TV and they think, oh, she's better. It's like, oh, no, I'm not better. Every day, it's like swimming through mud. Every day. Even just to do normal things, to get up and brush your teeth, go to work, have the kids go to school, get dinner on the table, whatever it is, doing that when you're grieving is very difficult. And I think people want you to feel better because it makes them feel better, and you want them to feel better, so you try to present as if you're okay. But I want to not do that, because otherwise you end up leading like a double life, and then you're smiling to people and then you're not. But if you're not smiling on the inside, then I don't want to do that. Right? And so I've had to really do the work. And I recognize now that I hold 2 things. I hold my grief, and I also hold this joy. And I said it months ago, and I'll say it now. I am fighting for my joy. And when I first said it, I don't even know if I knew what it meant. I still kind of don't. All I know is that's what I'm doing. And when I went back to work, it was so difficult. And even some days now, it's very difficult. But in my mind, I've got this trick where it's like, not even a trick, but it's how I get myself through. I'm like, who is the woman I want to be? Like, when I look back at this time in my life and my kids look back, like, who do I want them to see? What mother do I want them to see? So if I'm inside and there are all these people in the plaza, it's harder for me now, right? Because everybody wants to, the women who are in the widow club, we hug, and I lost a sister, I'm also battling cancer, or, people, I feel a responsibility to hold space for what everyone is holding, and that can be very hard sometimes. And so I'll be inside and I'll see all those people outside, and they'll have signs, especially now more than ever. The woman I want to be, she wants to go meet them, and she wants to hold space for them, and she wants to go outside, and she wants to make eye contact with them. So I do it. So I go. Last night I got home, I was exhausted, but my daughter has a dance recital. The mom I want them to see, she's in the front row, and when you look up and you're singing your little Lauryn Hill solo, you're gonna see me smiling at you, and you're gonna see me with these big wide eyes, and I'm gonna look at you and I'm gonna be like, you're kicking butt. And so last night I was exhausted, but I was in the front row on the left, right there. And so sometimes that's how I get through. Who is the woman I wanna be? Okay, she'd do it, so let's go. My first glimmers, I think, honestly, hearing my kids laugh, it's like, okay, like we can still laugh. They're gonna be okay. And then for me personally, it was going back to work. Who would have thunk? There are days where I would get a little teary. There was one day in particular, we were doing a segment, and we were doing a holiday segment, and there were these cookies, Johnny Walker cookies, that were Uche's favorite. And I saw them on the table, and I just started crying during a commercial break. And everybody's like, Dylan looked at me first. She's like, what's the matter? And I was like, and they got my ear. They're like, Sheinelle, you don't have to do this. I'm like, no. It's okay, And Craig is like, my big brother. And he's like, I'm like, no, I'm okay. I said, Dylan, but you take it, And so they just stepped in and we did it. And then, I got through it. So I don't have to not cry or not get teary because I also feel responsibility to the people who are going through it with me, to let them know that don't think that I just have it made and that it's just so easy. Like, I'm right with you guys. I see you guys. This is really hard. On that note, the amount of, hundreds and hundreds, over the 1,000 mark letters that I've received from people. And they're not just like cards where they sign their name. People are writing letters, and I read them a little bit every day. And I sent thank you notes to everyone already. I've sent out 1,200 thank you notes already, because I feel like if people are gonna pour into me and share their stories, then I can try to let them know that I receive it. And it really does give me strength. I remember when I was running the marathon with real weight on my shoulders, it felt like the cheering would carry me. Like when my legs were like, oh my God, I can't run anymore. And it feels that way now. 1, the hardest marathon of my life, and 2, that I'm literally carried by support and love. Like, they literally carry me. But I also think that I have been changed in a good way because of what's happened to me. I've always been somebody who has empathy, and I love to connect with people. but it's my superpower now because I'm not afraid of anyone. I'll talk to anyone, whether you are Joe Blow, whether you're a celebrity, whether you're an executive, whether you're a lawmaker, we can have a conversation because I've been through the worst, and now I'm leading into fighting for my joy and connecting with people and squeezing the most I can out of life. And I want to see my kids see me do that so that they do the same.
I never dated before, really, because I only had one boyfriend, really.
Yes.
But, so if I were to, this would be...
This is a date.
Right, and I feel like everybody's like, are they talking? Are they friends?
I remember when I came back and she had all of her friends and it was like my turn to fill in for my week. Everybody's like, oh yeah, like we knew it, you know? And when I did it that week, it certainly felt easy. I felt curious about it. You know, I've always had like a male co-host. That's kind of the formula. You do the news of the day. You know, in local news, you do sports, you do weather, and you say have a good night. You know, but this format felt fun, felt a little different, so I enjoyed it. But then I went right back to doing what we do, and I love our team, and didn't really think much of it. But slowly but surely, obviously, everybody's like, oh, this is what you're gonna do. Like a lot of people, like a lot. Cousins, celebrities, viewers. It was a groundswell of like, Sheinelle, I know, and I even said, guys, I'm grieving. There will be many people who will tell you that I said, I'm just not in the place. Like, and the truth of the matter is like, was I afraid of it? Not afraid of it, but it's just, I've had so much change, you know, in such a short amount of time. And so I'm like, do I want more change? But you know what? Who's the girl I want to be? Is she afraid to bet on herself and try something new with a girl who is badass and fun?
Please welcome my new co-host, Sheinelle Jones.
Like, let's do it. Like, let's go for it. And now I'm like, of course, it feels so right now, but I really put a lot of thought into it because I knew it would be change for me. And I'm like, can I handle the change? And now I'm like, not only can I handle the change, but it's easier now because I don't feel like I'm doing it for me. I feel like I'm doing it for the woman or the man or the teenager who picks up People magazine and they read my story and they're grieving or they're holding space for something. I completely underestimated the amount of pain and grief or just stuff that people are holding. And people want to give up. Sometimes I don't want to give up. But I feel like if you can turn on and not only see me just doing it, but seeing me win and seeing me get new opportunities and conquer them and hit this market in a way that I don't think we've seen right now. I think there's a void for two kick-ass girls to have sisterhood and, you know, laugh one moment, cry the next, talk about our kids, talk about our parents. I can't wait. And I'm so excited now that I've allowed myself to go ahead and not protect myself from it, but to feel it and say, you know what, we're gonna rock it. I've never had a win without Uche. I've never gotten a job in television without him. He was there when I got my very first job in Springfield, Illinois, and in Tulsa. I remember when I got the job in Philly, I got on my stomach on the floor and I was like so excited. And so this time I was like, I looked over because I was in bed and there's no one there and I was like, I was like searching for his voice, like something. And I like went through my phone and I found an old text message from him from a phone that I forgot that he had. And it was a day when I was supposed to fill in and I had just gotten to the Today Show and it was around like election coverage and I just did an election coverage and I had issues with my throat and so my voice was scratchy and I just felt like, you know, this is just, I can't even be the person I want to be. And he said, don't worry, you'll get your shot. Like God is in control. And so I remember getting that or looking at that text message in bed and I was like, and then I cried. And I was like, okay, like, I know you're not like here, but you're like here. And I'm like, what are the odds this text just like landed in my lap? Like, okay. So I know that he knows. And even when Hoda announced that she was leaving, he didn't say a lot about it, but he sent me a text with like these emojis, like a you got this emoji and a strong emoji. And I remember at the time being like, I'm here with you. Like I'm not even, you know. So I look back at those two messages and I'm like, you know, he was rooting for me all along.
I biked one time in the last like 12 years, and that was in Central Park, and I said I would never do that again.
There are times where I'm like, really, God, like, could we have done all this without like losing my husband? Like, you know, I don't know what he's doing. I don't know who he's trying to reach by using me the way he's using me, but it does feel that way. But I know that all of the things that have happened to me out in my life, you know, my mom's been divorced twice, and, you know, blended families, and moving all over the country, and marrying my college sweetheart, and having twins, and having another, just all of these things like have brought me to this moment. How am I doing today? I think I am busier than I could have ever imagined. I am stronger than I could have ever imagined. I think my nervous system still feels like it's under attack a little bit. I try to lean into the exciting moments. If something is tough, I don't run from it anymore. I just take a breath and I lean into it. But I've noticed now that even while I'm here, if my phone rings and it's one of the kids, I'm a bit jumpier. And I didn't used to be so anxious as far as that was concerned, but I'm definitely a bit more careful about like the world around me. But overall, I am super thankful. It's almost so amazing that it's like, look at life. It's like I've had the highest highs and the lowest lows in like a 6-month period or even a 12-month period. It almost feels nuts. And so sometimes when I lay my head down at night and I feel like I'm kind of going nuts, I have to remind myself, that's because this is insane. Like the journey that I've been on in the last, couple years has been such a wild ride. But in many ways, it feels like, okay, like I'm gonna be okay.